Okay, so this says we are recording, so let's go with the fact that we're recording. Okay, I'll do a quick introduction and then we'll kind of get going. So hello to everybody who is watching this. My name is Muireann Nic Corcráin. I am the Enniscorthy Hockey Club Public Relations Officer, or P.R.O, and I am delighted to be joined by Irish hockey legend and newly appointed Irish women's hockey team manager, Lisa Jacob. Lisa, thank you very, very much for taking time out of your very busy schedule and sure to sit down and have a little chat.
No problem. Delighted to be here.
Perfect. So we might just kind of crack into it because we got a few questions from club members and I do kind of want to include as much of them as possible along with the ones we'd kind of set out. So I suppose kind of to go back to the very start, if you don't mind, where the hockey journey really began. Where did you kind of have your first experience of hockey, or kind of that, I suppose, that light bulb moment of, oh, this is something I really like. This is a sport I really like and something I can get into.
Yeah, it was actually, I was asked this a little bit during the week. It was actually when I went to school. I was in primary school in a tiny school. I think it's closed now, Killegny, out towards Clonroach. And kind of when I was picking secondary schools, it was sort of like most people from there went to boarding school in Kilkenny College. I know I had looked at different schools. I don't quite remember, but I sort of just followed everybody else and went to school there. So it was actually there that we, it was part of your all the things you need to get for first year. It was like hockey stick, hockey scores, all this kind of stuff. Sure, I hadn't a clue. I remember my mum, who had played hockey, was trying to give me. She's like, "Oh, I got the first D to hockey stick now in Ireland ever," and I looked at it and it was like one of those big long ones, like the I didn't know anything about hockey, but I was like, I cannot turn up that thing. So got just a normal hockey stick from a sports shop. It was grand, but I don't think there was any real light bulb moment. Like, it was kind of the main sport that was played there, and because I was boarding, I suppose I could kind of be out every day on the pitches. Like, I would have done a lot of stuff like athletics and rowing and a few bits at home, but then I suppose going to school, yeah, I just picked it up and we had hockey maybe twice a week in first year. And then probably what really helped, I would say, is Daphne Sixsmith came to school as a teacher, and she then became the minor coach. So when I went into second year and made the minor A's, she was playing for Ireland at the time and was coaching our team. And just as as amazing, I suppose, you have that kind of sense of like, I never even knew that there was an Irish team or anything like that. I didn't know the whole. I was just playing hockey, like.
Mm.
I suppose then you kind of realize, like, oh wow, you could play for Ireland. To be honest, I didn't even really know what that meant either. Like, but it sounded cool. So then when I went into my junior year, she actually moved with the team up to junior, so I had her for 2 years, and that was probably the stage then where I was getting into, like, I kind of got trials for the Southeast under 16s and stuff. So I probably had like a lot of inspiration, but also a lot of very kind of up to date coaching and stuff around different things I could do. So yeah, that was probably a big thing. But I just sort of, like, I love playing most things, to be honest. So because that was the main thing that was going on, I just kind of picked it up and went from there.
Yeah, you couldn't really escape from it if they were telling you on your first year list you need to have a hockey stick and you need to have a
Yeah,
sport.
exactly.
Uh,
We had to try it anyway.
yeah. And did Daphne kind of have a good kind of coaching mentality, or was there something that she said or did that kind of made you think, no, I can make it to the highest level if I so wish, even if I don't necessarily know what that means? But was there something that she kind of did in the sessions with you, or kind of said maybe off the pitch as a coach, that might have stood with you?
Yeah, I suppose, like, for anyone who's experienced any coaching in any sport, they'll probably know without any words when you feel like a coach believes in you. So there was definitely that bit. But I suppose she would have, like, there were times kind of coming up to Southeast trials and stuff where she would have stayed a little bit late and kind of shown me a few things. And um, I don't know, yeah, there's probably not much thought to it. We just kind of feel like, geez, I'm really lucky. And it just sort of fosters that excitement and love of the sport, really. And then, like, I remember, I think I made I made the Southeast team, and I remember with another girl in school, and she wrote us a card like best of luck, and I had no stick bag at the time, and of course when she was playing she had obviously loads of stuff, so I remember she gave me a stick bag and stuff like that, like really small things that meant like at that stage when you're kind of 14 or 15 like mean a huge amount, you know. And yeah, I suppose like I remember then getting Irish trials and saying to her, like, you know, have you got any advice? And she was like, oh, wear a bright colored t-shirt so they remember you, and just be yourself. And I was like, okay, well, I can wear the bright colored t-shirt, but like that's great advice. But in hindsight, if I was, you know, if I was her and I was speaking to a player in a similar situation, I would say the same thing now, because you see that potential in them. Like just play the way you always play, like you know. So yeah, I suppose that was the main thing. Like there were other coaches in school also, like strangely my English teacher at the time, like I don't think she was coaching, but I found out that she had also played for Ireland, and she kind of, I had her for 5 years, so she was quite interested in, like when I was sort of in fifth year I was playing with her maybe in Dublin and stuff. So I mean, don't get me wrong, I had quite a few teachers who over my time in school were like, you're burning the flame on both ends, or whatever that saying is, like, you know, I'm playing too much hockey and I need to look after my studies. But listen, I think I I did as well as I could with the balance, and I was also lucky, like I got a chance in school to train with the minor boys when I was in fifth and sixth year. So they were kind of 14, and then I would have been say 17. So it was probably a really good standard. And I also, so then instead of kind of training and playing, like training 2 days a week and having a match, I actually was training 4 days a week, because I would do 2 days with the boys, and had the chance to be coached by Richard Willis then, who's I don't know how many internationals he's developed, like boys and girls. So I was just, I think, a combination of like I loved it and I loved training and playing, and then I had kind of access to facilities and good coaches and role models. It was all a bit of a concoction to help me, I'd say.
a bit of everything to kind of push you on. So just with the Southeast trials and kind of the Irish trials and stuff, like how did you find the setup? Like was it very structured? Were they kind of, you know, very accommodating to you with school when you had to go for trials and things? And kind of how does that process work, or is it similar to what girls and boys would go through today?
Yeah, I think actually it's quite similar. Like certainly at Southeast level, like you would kind of have a period where you're doing trials or sort of like development training and trials, and then maybe there'd kind of be like a squad picked to go to Inter-Pros, and then they're preparing for maybe a month before they go. You have the tournament, and then that's kind of the end of that cycle, and you maybe go into Irish trials or not. So like to be honest, I know the school obviously sent me for my first trials for Southeast under 16s, and like I didn't really know what it was. Like I remember I got picked for the team, and I was even this talk about like, oh, in the school, like, oh, Lisa has made the Southeast team, and like I actually didn't really know what I was going to. I know it sounds quite strange, like but like I remember going, the first one was down in Cork, and I remember going and just like the first time coming to the side of the pitch before we were going to play our game in maybe like an hour. And I think Munster were playing Ulster, and like hearing like the Ulster accents and stuff, it was completely foreign to me. Like I can actually remember that moment of like just yeah, just the kind of strange stuff you remember of, like I wouldn't have known anyone with a northern accent until that point in my life. Like so it's quite funny, like when you look back, that actually some of those people on that pitch on that day, like I would have gone on to play with at senior level and stuff. But I think then the next year around, like I probably then realized you realize a level that you just completely have not been playing at. Like I'd never experienced it before, you know. So I think in that tournament I played like right wing. I didn't even play anywhere else up front, just right wing, you know. And you're just kind of doing your best. But I suppose it probably gave me like a real kind of fire to go back and just now understanding that level to just kind of, I don't know, it probably wasn't conscious, but you just take away that experience and you're like, okay, I need to be better. Like if I'm going to try and do this again. So I think just that, I think I was in third year then. So I was lucky that I actually was still under 16 when I was in fourth year. So I was getting kind of good experience and like I was junior captain in school, and I probably just grew a lot in that year before going back again. And I think I ended up being captain of the team, like stuff that I just I never would have saw all that stuff in myself, and you're just like, how has this happened? But my growth from like my first experience in Southeast to then being under 16 again next year. So I got Irish trials then, and I just went up and did it. Like I didn't really, I was obviously like, I remember being nervous, but like also stupid, there was like 2 trials left, and I remember playing like there was a TY rugby team in school, and the big thing of the year was playing against the first year C boys or something, and my brother happened to be in the team. So he's definitely not a C rugby player now. He's most people will know him, but I played that game, and I was like, I remember getting a dead leg in that game, and then turning up to the trial and the coach going mental and stuff that, like, in hindsight, I just wouldn't really, it's just complete naivety and not really knowing how everything worked. But anyway, I made the team, which was great, and then I had the whole experience of kind of training every maybe second weekend in Dublin. And I remember going away to play in Italy. Like, it was, of all the hockey I ever played after that, that was the hottest tournament I ever played, my first tournament. And it was like now they probably wouldn't allow it from a medical point of view. It was like 44 degrees, I remember, a couple of days, like in the mountains in northern Italy. So it was mad, but it actually sets you up. Like, I remember the coach saying to us that time, for any of you who go on to play, like, you really, these will be some of the toughest conditions. And like, again, you just don't know, so you're like, oh, she's probably just saying that. But no, she was right. So yeah, I didn't really think about it. I didn't know the whole process until you're kind of in it, and I just, that probably served me well in some ways. Just got on with it and did my best.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point that you kind of just go in and I have a job to do and I'll do it and that's it, and
Yeah.
you're kind of not thinking about all the outside stuff that maybe the coaches or people in the club might have said either.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. And then once you kind of finished school, you went on and you were playing with UCD, and you did mention there as well that you played with Hermes. Did you find the level kind of at UCD and Hermes, did you find that to be a big step up from playing with school, or do you think the time with the interprovincial squads and the Irish teams like stood to you when you started to play with UCD?
Yeah, I think I played with Hermes when I was in 5th year, so they had like loads of players in their squad were in the Irish squad, and they were away kind of preparing for the World Cup in Australia, so they weren't really that available for the club. So it was kind of through Daphne that I would have ended up just going up to play. Like, I never trained with them, so it's just turning up on a Saturday, like going home from school and then getting the bus up to Dublin, getting picked up at UCD and being brought to a match. Like, and to be honest, like, the level was, like, at that stage I would have been in the Irish under 18s, but still the level was really high. And I remember just, like, it's quite funny, I think like years later I saw a video and I was like, I was running around like a mad thing, but sure, I don't think I even trapped the ball. Like, I was, it's so funny, even though you're in the Irish squad. But I think it was really good for me, like that kind of stretch where you're just trying to do your best and do well enough when you're on the pitch. And even then you think, like, probably when I went to UCD, there was another, that was kind of nearly a year and a half later, and I had been through the under 18 like European tournament and stuff, and still the level, like, I went into UCD as like a sports scholar, so maybe a bit of expectation on me as well, but like, it wasn't easy. Like, I really particularly remember that first year in UCD was not easy. But like, probably saying that, if I was looking at it from another player's point of view, or the coach's point of view, I probably was absolutely doing fine and I was probably doing well, but I just didn't feel like I was, if that makes sense. So but like, there's so much more to it in UCD, I suppose, like a whole new group of friends, they're all your age, like really good, like unbelievable banter. So there was, like, even though I found the playing on the pitch quite difficult, there was lots of really good stuff about it as well. But yeah, it's amazing, like, even though there's probably lots of things that are preparing you for like the next level or a bit more of a stretch, it always feels hard, So but yeah, it was good.
Good. And did you kind of find that definitely helped you when you started to go for the Irish senior squad and getting your first cap with the Irish seniors? Like, did you still have the experience of playing with UCD even when the Irish squad was kind of kicking off a bit?
Yeah, I think like getting into the senior squad, I sort of I had been in a development squad for a little while, and then like just kind of to bridge that gap between when I finished in school and in college and stuff. Um, but I remember like not like everything prepares you for your first cap, but also kind of nothing does. So you sort of like you don't have that experience until you get it. So you sort of just you go through it and you kind of hope like you'll do as well as you can. But just because of the whole us like the first time I'm playing for the Irish senior team, you're never really ready in some ways. You just have to get on with it and do your best.
Mm.
um, so yeah, I think I suppose playing like in Ireland, at least playing at the highest level that I always could, for my age, like that's really kind of all you can do. I suppose like to prepare yourself, and then there was actually not that much training in the run-in. It was kind of like sort of a period between two coaches, and there was kind of an interim coach, so there was just like a tournament in the summer, so it was really kind of like uh, maybe 2 weekends to kind of build up, and then that tournament away in France. So it was probably unlike it would ever happen for anybody now. But yeah, listen, I just did my best, I suppose.
I
And then
mean,
the biggest was probably having played those 3 games in France, and then the new coach coming in is he going to still think that I might be good enough to play in the squad? So probably that was nearly a bigger thing, and having the experience of the 3 games stood to me a little bit. Yeah.
brilliant. That's really good. Did you kind of find challenges coming up when you were playing with the Irish senior squad? Because obviously, as you said, like, you know, it's very high standard. You obviously were definitely good enough to be on it, but did you find there was times where you know, certain games might not go your way, or you would just be dejected from a game, and you know, you're kind of, I suppose you're kind of, your mental thought process would have been kind of, you wouldn't have been in a good way, or you would have not had that belief in yourself. Did you kind of find that there was times where you had that, or did you and your teammates kind of rally around each other to try and push through those difficult times?
Yeah, 100%. I had that a lot, and I think it's probably one of the things that when I've gone on to coach and even working with some of the junior age group internationals now, or in the last couple of years, is actually helping them to understand that just because you play for Ireland or you play in the senior team, it doesn't mean you're any different to anybody else. So you have the same struggles with confidence, the same doubts, the same fears, the same injuries, the same everything. And I suppose as soon as you get into the Irish squad, you kind of know you're always being watched. Your performance is always, whether you're playing for UCD on the weekend or you're playing in a varsity competition that maybe it's not as important as other things you might play or whatever, your performance has always been watched in every single training. You're always been kind of judged. So, and because you're trying to kind of improve all the skills that are being focused on in the group, like you constantly have a really long list of all the things that you need to get better at. And it can be quite hard to hold um, what your strengths are kind of in your mind when you're, you know, like part of learning is failing and is not doing it well. And to be able to actually be able to, you know, complete a skill, you actually have to go through loads and loads and loads of not completing it.
Mm.
So like all of that, I suppose, means that you're just hyper aware of how am I doing, and probably focusing a bit more on when you're not doing things like, oh no, like what does that mean, or you're frustrated, or you know, all those things that, you know, I think many people who play sport go through. And there are definitely times, like I know, either with injury or not playing well, or you know, I suppose kind of after a couple of years in UCD, so say my fourth and fifth year when I was there, I was captain, so you end up then also taking that responsibility of team performance quite personally. So if we lose a game or whatever, it's sort of like you kind of feel like it's maybe more your job to have done something differently or better. Or and I also would have been playing up front, so oftentimes then you're going, I should have scored that goal, I should have won that corner, I should have got that rebound. So all of those things mean that like you're constantly mentally just having a bit of a battle with things. But like I also think that's the great thing about sport is it looks like it's all about the stuff on the pitch and on the ball, and actually a lot of it is between your two ears. How can you kind of push back and just try and stay present and not get caught up on a mistake you just made, or a card you just got, or the game that you should have scored in or lost or whatever. But it's really like, as much as growing as a hockey player, like technically, or learning tactics or whatever, really learning to be as good as you can with all those things like confidence and doubts and everything is just something that you are always learning as you go through your career as well. So there's definitely no magic potion.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing though really is just trying to remember what you're good at. Like even now, say, having just gone in with the girls in the Irish team, is reminding them what they're good at, because they're no different than I was before, where you just think, I need to get better at all these things, or I didn't train very well today, and it's like, okay, but you did this well. So as much as saying all these things I need to improve, it's being able to acknowledge, actually I did this well too,
Yeah.
it's a small thing but makes a big difference over time.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's brilliant advice, especially with the fact that, a lot of young players might kind of doubt their ability and different things like that. So I think it's really good that you can kind of say at every single level, you're going to have some moments that aren't going to be fantastic, but you have to try and look at the positives as well. And that's what's going to bring you forward in different things. Was there a standout moment? I know it's very, very tough question to be asking, but was there a standout moment with the Irish squad? Now, it can be a tournament memory, it could be an off the pitch thing, something that one of the girls said that was just absolutely hilarious and you've never forgotten, or was there something that kind of made you think, yeah, this is why I'm involved in the team, this is why I want to be here?
Do you know, that's a question I've actually never been asked before, and a really good one, because this is bringing up loads and loads of happy memories.
Good.
There's so many, like I'd say so many. I couldn't put my finger on any of them. And funny, a lot of them are actually off the pitch. So like one of the really lucky things about playing for Ireland is you get to travel. Like I remember, say, going to South Africa, and just in January, so you literally have got like layers on when you go to the airport, like skins, and you've got your woolly hat in your bag, and getting off the plane in like 30 something degrees and just feeling that wall of heat. Like probably most people get it when they go on their own holidays, but when you're so busy with hockey, just that, like, this is actually so cool. Like I'm so lucky. Like, the next 2 weeks are very tough training, like a couple of sessions a day and games and stuff like that. But just there's also so many great things about it as well. And then there's just the banter, like of, you end up kind of rooming with similar people. So like, myself and Roisin and Flynn, I would have been in UCD with her. We would have roomed for a lot of our career together wherever we went, and just Blair and Bruce Springsteen in the room, and having that same, like, just kind of shared love for things. Like most of the other squad are like, what is that crap? But we had an appreciation for it anyway. And actually, like, standout moment is quite funny. Like if I was to picture it, we were sponsored by ESB for a long time, and they changed from ESB to Electric Ireland kind of during our sponsorship. And we had a great manager, Sally Ann Flanagan, who would have been making sure that we were always looking right. We always had the right gear on, and it was to the point where you'd be scared to turn up in the wrong kit. Like, remember we were doing kind of a photo shoot before we went to Europeans or something. They needed it for the what do you call those, kind of the books that you have, like the programs for the tournament. So we were all kind of lined out, and they were like, okay, let's do a proper squad photo. Like, I think a proper photographer even came to do it. And I remember we were all kind of like lined up, and he had taken a few photos, and then the photographer just kind of like came out from outside the camera, and he was like, oh, he like pointed at one of the girls. So basically, like, everybody was wearing the new Electric Ireland, like, on the front of their shirts. And one girl still had her ESB shirt, and nobody noticed until the guy had taken a few photos. He noticed. But he got the photo of everybody in that moment of realizing that she was wearing the wrong shirt, and it was kind of that like, oh shit, like Sally Ann's going to kill me, but also like this is hilarious. So the best photo I've ever seen of sport, you know, it's not one of those like kind of prim and proper where everyone's sitting there like smile now, you know, everyone is busting themselves laughing, and they actually use it. ESB or Electric Ireland actually use that photo as like the kind of changeover photo from one to the other. It just is the most naturally occurring, but just the funny, like small funny moments like that where it mightn't sound funny to anyone else, but it was just like everyone was so scared of Sally Ann. What you go, she's going to kill us, like. So it turned out to be pretty good, but just loads. Like I lived with some of the girls from the north as well when we were centralised in Dublin, and just learning about, you know, what life is like up north, but also they've a wicked sense of humour, like Shirley, who's obviously still playing, and Alex, who's the captain at the time. So just loads, but it's actually a lot of it is off the pitch. It's the stuff that nobody sees, and then obviously you've got tournaments where and games that are obviously like highly important. Like I remember, you know, trying to qualify for the Olympics and being in the final against Belgium and losing 3-0. And, you know, it's kind of only the people who you're in the trenches with that understand what you went through. So even though it's obviously a disappointment, it's a really strong thing to look back on that has bound me to other people as well, you know. So but lots of good stuff as well, you know, when you score a goal or you have a great result in a tournament, or, you know, all those things are amazing as well.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that it's kind of the off the pitch bond that really kind of cemented the whole experience. I think that's so important for anybody, and doesn't matter what level you're playing at or what sport you're with, that you have that kind of bond with people that you know that you'd always be there for them, and they'd always be there for you, and you'd have those kind of naturally funny moments. I love that photo story is probably the funniest story I've ever heard.
I'm going to find the photo and send it on to you.
Yeah, do be class. And then you also had the opportunity to play professional hockey in the Netherlands. That's pretty exciting. How did that come about, and how did you find the experience there compared to Irish hockey?
To be honest, so kind of came about, again, I was just kind of thinking about trying to improve my hockey. Like we'd had quite a few, like kind of just missed out on World Cups or Olympics, and I was just thinking like, how can I personally improve? And that's what got me thinking really. So I just sent an email to a whole load of clubs. I tried to get hold of an email address, and I was just lucky that SCHC, who I ended up playing with, and they had like an Argentinian forward with them for 6 years, and they sort of made contact, but they were like, I think our squad is going to be full this year, but, you know, we'll keep you in mind for future years, whatever. But they actually, like quite late in the day, got on to me and said like this Argentinian had decided not to come back quite unexpectedly, so would I come over for a trial? And they had come, we were playing the Europeans in Belgium, I think, so they kind of drove over to watch me in that game, a couple of games there. So I went over and did the trial, and then they sort of offered me to come and play, and it was an amazing experience, to be honest. Like if anyone can even get over, like even if anyone is a student and they end up, when we get out of lockdown, like going to Holland or Amsterdam for like a weekend, they play all their Hoofdklasse, that's kind of like the top league games, men and women, on Sundays. So if you can even get to one of those, like if you're on a weekend away, there'll definitely always be some in Amsterdam because there's so many clubs there. But it's quite a small country, accessible by train, so you could go anywhere. But just like it's quite amazing. Like they've got this really good something I kind of tried to bring back to the clubs that I've played in Ireland, but they sort of do like mini of the week. So like youth hockey player of the week gets to come and come into the team talk and do the warm up, like the kind of running warm up, with the big kind of main squad, and sit on the bench for the game. So every kind of home match we would have had like mini of the week with us, and it's quite amazing. Like at halftime, literally we'd be going back into the changing room, and like I'm not even kidding, like it could be up to 200 kids get out with their hockey stick, and I mean like between 2 and 4, not even like the older ones. Like it's like they can barely even walk and they're going around with their little sticks, like but just that culture of like how many people play, and obviously then you have kind of facilities like SCHC, I think, had 4 pitches with the kind of clubhouse in the middle, and that would have been a small club. Like some of them we went to, and they like literally have 10 pitches all the way around. Like it's quite hard to comprehend, but I really would recommend even just going for a weekend and going to a game. But they also are like really skillful, and as people they're very direct. Like if you played badly, you'll know about it. If you did something crappy, you know about it. If you did something amazing, you'll know about it. So even just that kind of like directness in their culture, I think is something that kind of hardened me as a hockey player as well. Like it was an amazing experience. Like it was quite hard as well because you're doing all your training sessions are mostly delivered in Dutch. So you kind of watch the demo and then somebody will give you a bit of English. But like you could be the first person going the exercise and you just have no idea what's going on. Like so, and when you're in an environment that's like at that time was actually harder than being in the Irish squad, like quite considerably, just the level that they were all playing at. Like it was tough going, but I'm really glad I did it. Yeah, really glad I did it. He's just playing some amazing games, like and like I would have been in the squad, but I would never have been starting. And you're just watching like before you go on some absolutely unbelievable hockey going on, and in quite a different style than you would have in Ireland. So whether I was playing or I was watching, it was incredible. Yeah.
Amazing. That sounds really, really good. I definitely think if I get the opportunity, I'll head over for the weekend,
Yeah, yeah.
just to kind of see a different side of things. And then you kind of took a bit of a break from the hockey and you went and played rugby.
Yeah.
What was that like to kind of having kind of been playing hockey for the majority of your kind of career up to date, and then I'm going to go and play rugby.
Yeah, I know. I was actually talking to some guys on a podcast about that this week. They were the same thing when they read it. They're like, "What happened there?" And it's really interesting in hindsight. So I probably had been in the Irish squad for maybe 9 years, and I was very much, I suppose, at that stage like one of the senior players, and I'd kind of been in the leadership group for a couple of years, and we had probably like put a lot into like trying to qualify for a couple of different Olympics. The same thing with the World Cups and trying to break into that top 12. Like we were just always losing finals and I think like what really happened was there was kind of like a cumulative build up of what felt like just failure. Even you build up to this tournament for like 9 or 10 months and have such high hopes and this is the one, and then like, oh no, not again. And to be honest, like at the time, when I look back, I know I was just burnt out, and I just probably hadn't had a break from like pushing as hard as I could in everything for so long. And then I think combined with maybe a couple of tournaments where we had been so close but didn't quite break through, and maybe it's just my nature. I probably took it a bit more to heart than maybe other people would just be like, whatever, we'll go again. But I think that was maybe kind of the nature of being in that leadership group. And but anyway, I know it was just my energy was completely gone. And but I think what that looked like at the time was that I lost belief that we might ever do it. And yeah, just kind of probably maybe 9 months before that, the coach had changed. And I was probably quite aware that as a senior player, this new coach might come in and want to kind of have like a younger group of players and get rid of some of the older players and stuff. So during that time, like probably going back 9 months before then, I had just seen like the Rugby Sevens program was starting up and they were doing like talent ID stuff. So I just went to one of those and it was all just kind of fitness and running stuff, which like when you've been training for 10 years, like, most days of the week, it actually was pretty easy. So they were kind of emailing me every couple of weeks, like, oh, we've got a session on here. Would you like to join or whatever? So I think I also got injured. And I had a chance to, for the first time in nearly 10 years, to not be involved in squad stuff, every other day of the week. So it just allowed me to kind of emotionally disconnect from the team a little bit and just sort of go, maybe a new challenge will actually sort of reignite my passion for sport and stuff. So yeah, I just kind of gave it a go and like obviously it's a very, very big decision to go from a sport where you're a senior player in an international team to go, right, I'm done with this and I'm going to something else, not just I'm retiring. So I was actually saying during the week, like I'm actually surprised, knowing my character, that I actually made that decision for myself. But it probably was a sign of actually how much I just needed a break. But saying that, like I went into rugby, and I think when you make a decision like that, you just have to go full belt into it. And I was in for about a year and a half, and you kind of go from, being very sort of proficient in one sport to having to start like nearly at zero. Like, of course, I would have thrown the ball around with the lads in the garden when I was younger, and my dad would like kick the ball up in the air and be like, "Okay, tenner if you catch it," and then doubles or quits, doubles or quits. So doing a bit of that, but never like tackling and like some of the core skills.
Yeah.
And you're going in then quite quickly with people who've been tackling, like rugby tackling, for years and internationally playing rugby. So it was a big move, but like probably what stood to me is that I was a really good athlete. I obviously needed to get a bit stronger for rugby, but just going in, like learning new skills and being in a completely different environment, like it was really, really good. And I probably got to the point maybe over a year and 2 or 3 months maybe, where I was like, okay, I'm either going to get picked now or he probably won't ever pick me. And yeah, I think probably had I got the opportunity maybe to go away and play some of the games where there's kind of, for so long you can do all the training, but then especially when in rugby sevens I wouldn't have known the rules very well and stuff like that, you just kind of have to get in and get that experience to sort of kick on to the next level. But anyways, probably like they actually have a lot of tournaments back to back with rugby sevens. Like they could be in Dubai one weekend and then in Australia the next weekend, and then like the kind of World Series, they follow the sun, like it's completely different hockey. Like always like sunny destinations around the world. But so yeah, I got the chance to play Canada and the US, but never really broke into like the tournament team. But with sevens, there's only like 7 players on the team and 12 will travel as squad, so it was probably quite tall order anyway. But I listen, an amazing experience, and it has served me well in many ways, having come out of sports to have a couple of different things to compare. Yeah,
definitely. And then you kind of you went back, as you were kind of mentioning earlier, and you were coaching and kind of being assistant coach with international squads, and is it right that you've been working with Glenanne for a little bit as well? So that's kind of interesting as well, because obviously they're international squads of both girls, and then you're kind of working with a men's team. Is the kind of the team mentality the same, like that kind of creating that good culture? So it's kind of a double-pronged question of, do you find any difference coaching a men's team and a girls team, and is the kind of the team mentality and that good culture evident in both, and kind of what would you see as good culture?
yeah. Well, I'll have to be careful not to go on for an hour about this.
bullet points. Here's one good thing and here's one bad thing. And
yeah, I think so this year is my first experience of coaching a guys team, and I would say in many ways actually most things are the same. You can maybe afford to be more direct and a bit tougher with the guys, and I think for me as a coach, like probably having grown, it's not that you wouldn't be considered with what you say, but I'm not afraid to be honest. And I think when you can get to that point of just saying, like, this is where we are and this is where we need to get to, and what I see is that you're not doing X, Y, and Z. You're talking a whole load of stuff. When I turn off the noise, this is what it looks like. Just to have that kind of honest conversation. For me to be able to do that is really important in any kind of performance culture. So, I suppose to kind of double pronged answer, it is a little bit like maybe with girls, you maybe need to be kind of different with how you deliver a message. Like sometimes, but to be honest, like often they can take it down the barrel as well. It's just that maybe you need to be aware of kind of one-to-one stuff and making sure you're on top of what people are thinking and feeling. Like it's no different really, guys and girls, but I probably would just be a bit more aware that with girls things can fester a little bit more, whereas lads will just have it out kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of what makes a good culture, I think honesty and really good kind of human relationships. So like if we're just talking about the hockey and nobody cares about the person, then I don't think that's good. So there has to be a level of care, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to be kind of like tough with people or push them. Like actually the fact that you care about them means that you're going to push them and sometimes make hard calls because you know that that will get them to a level that they can't maybe get themselves. And yeah, I think honesty is probably the biggest thing, because there's a lot of stuff that can go on in a team that if you don't name it and you don't sort of acknowledge that this is where we're at or this is what's going on, or you know, like there's lots of stuff you can set up really well, like and have the best strength and conditioning coaches and really good program, and but like that kind of the relationships and the team bond and all of those things that go on probably will make the biggest impact at the end of the day. So just really attending to that, I think, is really important in the team culture.
Really good. Yeah, no, I would agree 100% with you. If you can't be honest, and there's a lot that can go wrong. So it's very important that you're honest and you work with the people around you, and you kind of acknowledge that hockey is important, but people might have other stuff going on, and it's about kind of being aware of that as well and working with people to the best of their ability and to the best of your ability. And then kind of with the role you've got now, it's a fantastic job. I don't actually think I've said congratulations yet properly, so congratulations. But how have you found the role so far, and kind of what's the roadmap with European Championships coming up, and then obviously Tokyo, which is fantastic. So kind of how is that going to be laid out over the next couple of months?
Yeah, it's a really, really busy year at the moment. So one of my first tasks is to try and organize trips away next year, where obviously with COVID and flights and quarantine and so many things, it's definitely not the normal year. So the Europeans are at the start of June, and they actually are a World Cup qualifier for the following year as well. So it's not just like you can just play the Europeans, like they actually have quite a waiting in terms of what happens kind of the following year. And then the Olympics are obviously in the middle of July. So you know, I suppose there's probably another block now. Kind of the way the Irish team do it is they train in 5-week blocks. So sort of the loading goes up and up, and then they have a recharge week, and then they go again. But so they kind of one more block now up to Christmas, and they'll then kind of have 2 weeks maybe where they manage their own training. And then in January, like really, it's all a bit up in the air. But the priority will be trying to get heat and humidity training and games. So, you know, like if you're looking at that early in the year, you're looking at Australia or Singapore or somewhere like that. So just you can imagine the kind of planning that's going on behind the scenes to try and make some of that stuff happen, and talking to governments and, you know, everything. So it'll be a really busy year for them, like demanding, but obviously exciting. But there could end up being quite a lot of time away, because if you have to quarantine for 2 weeks anywhere, then that's 2 weeks before you can actually play any matches and stuff. So they could end up with a lot of time away, which will be great. But also, I suppose by the time you get to those big tournaments, you could have actually spent quite a few, you know, maybe 3 months of the year already away from, you know, your dogs or your partner or whatever, family. So it'll just be kind of a balancing act of preparing as well as you can so you perform in those tournaments, but also making sure that kind of people mentally in their life and all those other things are this. It probably won't be balanced, but just is as balanced as you can get it. So but exciting, really exciting.
Yeah, it's very cool, because I know there was a couple of our club members actually went to the qualifier game against Canada, and so excited. And then obviously COVID has kind of, not, I wouldn't say ruined, but it's kind of postponed a lot of things that we would have liked to have seen sooner. So I think it's still brilliant that, you know, you're in the planning process for those tournaments, and that the hope is that obviously they will go ahead, just a little bit different than usual. I'm trying to think, is there anything else kind of coming to mind with questions? I think there was one that really made an impact on me, just because I myself play camogie and I play hockey, and there's plenty of people in our club who might play multiple sports. And in Wexford we've a great GA culture and we've great kind of sporting culture in general, but I think the fear is that sometimes other sports might overshadow the hockey. So I don't know if you've any thoughts on, how a club could kind of promote themselves a bit more, or is there something that we need to do with other sports that would kind of hopefully mean we could get players in that might play other sports more predominantly? Or I don't know,
Yeah.
kind of what's your thoughts on that?
Do you know, I actually think particularly that connection to GA and that culture is actually really strong. So like, I think it's great that so many people play both, and that probably gives you a window into maybe getting people from camogie to try hockey more than if you had a club full of people who just play hockey. It probably would never, invite people to come and give it a try. Like there are so many things that cross over with hurling and camogie. And I just think, like, unless you're really really serious, like say when I was obviously training with the Irish squad, and it's kind of, you're just training nearly like every other day for hockey. Like I just think there's so much of an advantage by playing 2 or 3 different sports. Because like the example for me is a girl I would have played with for many years, either in club or international, Anya Connery, who would have hurled for Kilkenny, and some of the things she can do on a hockey pitch are like no hockey player I know, and I think it's such a strength. And I think I just wouldn't be afraid to get people from your camogie team, like maybe just to give it a try night in the club, where you just get the gal guys down and make sure you've got a bit of music on and whatever, obviously when COVID allows. But I think small things like that, if there are natural kind of organic good relationships that exist between people in your club and in the community in other sports, it doesn't just have to be camogie, is you're not trying to pull them away from a sport that might be their main sport, but just to get them involved, that maybe they might play social hockey, or they might just be part of a wider panel, or I suppose they might just be part of the hockey community in some way, or they might pick it up and go, right, I'm going to play hockey and camogie or whatever. So yeah, I think small things then, like when you fix your matches and stuff like that, can make a difference, so people can actually feasibly play both and stuff, and training times. But definitely just doing a give it a try night, or getting into social hockey or something like that. I think those things are the way to try and get people into the game. Don't know if that answers your question.
No, I think it kind of does, because I think it is important that you're trying to portray the message that the hockey club is brilliant. If you play another sport, that's brilliant too, because there are those interchangeable skills that you see. I think one person you mentioned, Anya Connery, I'm thinking of the likes of Katie Mullen, who would have played intercounty herself and is like the Irish captain now. So you can definitely see the advantages of playing different sports.
Like even going on from that, there's like Deirdre Duke would have played football for Ireland. Like Nikki Daly is into motor racing. She would have played GA for Dublin. Like there's the more you look into it, the more, like Lena Tice played cricket for Ireland. Like literally if you go everywhere, it's most people have played another sport actually at quite a high level. So there's definitely, I think for hockey, not just regionally but actually as a national sport, I think we need to sell ourselves a little bit as look at all our sports people, our top sports people have actually come from and played lots of other sports. So just to kind of open it up. Like I feel sometimes it can be a little bit closed unless you have hockey in your town or you went to school where you played hockey or something. It can be less easy to get into it than say like going down to the local GA club when you're like 4 and stuff like that. So the more open and accessible it is, I think the higher chance you have of getting people involved.
Perfect. Just to kind of finish up, I'll do a little quick fire round. I did this with somebody before and it was quite funny. Well, I don't know if it's funny, but we'll see. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
No tea.
No tea. Don't ever give me tea unless it's a nice herbal tea, but give me lovely coffee.
Okay, well that takes out my question of barriers or lions then anyway. Would you prefer an early morning training session or an evening training?
Morning.
Morning, get it done and out of the way.
Yeah.
The toughest opponent in the Irish hockey scene you've ever played against?
Oh, Bridget McKeever.
Very good, very good.
Married name is now, but she would have played maybe when I came in. She was tough.
Chocolate or crisps?
Chocolate.
I'm in agreement with you on that one. And the last one, bit of quick advice for young players in Enniscorthy who might be wanting to make top squads in the future.
Just like practice. Don't wait for the coach to say this is what you need to do. Just get outside, whether it's on the concrete or the gravel or the grass at home. If it's like dragging the ball over and back the length of your dog in your hall, like this, just do your own practice and give yourself your own little goals, and just like don't let it get too serious either. Like you can be serious about it in terms of how you're training, but like for me, the thing that's kept me going through my whole career is that I love playing, and just to appreciate playing and enjoy that every time you're out on the pitch as well. Because at the end of the day, it's a game.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, I'll put a pause to the recording now in a second, but thank you very, very much again for taking the time out. Hopefully that'll inspire a couple more people in our club to get a bit more involved, or to drag a few more people to hockey sessions after this, and hopefully we'll be able to have you down once lockdown is over, and we'll get to have a chat with you at some stage. So thank you very, very much, Lisa.
Pleasure, no problem.